Thank you, Ryan. I almost got an early start earlier, and now I'm a little bit tied for words, but that's unusual for me. On cue, usually I can come up with quite a bit. Today, it was interesting, and I'll fill in a gap here before I get started. I'm Paul James Two Brothers Distillers. My son, my wife, and I run the business, and it's a family business. We're actually the first distiller in the city of Ocala. There's two other distillers in the immediate area, but they're outside the city limits. So when we first came to Ocala to look into this, I met with Brett Barnes, and we met with Ryan Lilly then as well, and this was going on almost 3-4 years ago. But so this isn't an idea that we just hatched overnight. It's been a long time in the making, and to get distillery inside the city limits, being that it was new ground, was something we had to go about slowly and with some deliberation. We wanted to make sure we did everything right. We have both state and federal licenses, so it requires that we adhere to a lot of red tape and paperwork. It's a highly regulated industry. We create 3 types of rums, 3 types of whiskeys. It's not a brewery or a winery, although we share a lot in common with those businesses. So our first presentation, which was now almost 2 years ago, was given with the things that brought us to the industry in the first place. So I won't backtrack there. You can watch that if you like to see what that was. But where we've been since then, we didn't have any distributor at the time. And most people don't understand this is a 3-tier system with spirits. 3-tier meaning we can't sell, except by a very small exception, to the public at all. So we have to sell through a distributor and then to a licensed retailer. So it puts us at odds basically for ways to market because we're so limited in what we can actually do. But we tended at first to think that we'd be welcomed open armed by most any distributor, and found out that we had to work really hard to find one. We're currently with Tri-Eagle for local distribution. And for the statewide and up the East Coast, we're with Park Street. And it's been a arduous sort of path to get to that state where we have distribution to some place. And just as we got that all established, we have COVID. So I mean, it's hard to keep a sense of humor about something as serious as that, but nonetheless, what we've done to adapt this year, when the outbreak first started to happen, we were contacted by the TTB, which is the federal arm of the regulating agencies, and they asked us to produce hand sanitizer. So ironically, the main ingredient in hand sanitizer is alcohol. And since we produce it here, it stood to reason that we could produce hand sanitizer without too much of a transition. So we thought. The truth really came out in that the supply chains had completely broken down. There was no bottles, there was no glycerin or the other ingredients that we needed to combine with the alcohol to make it usable as a hand sanitizer. So we had to suss out all these other places to find these things, which was quite a process. And the short version of that is that we did, and we started supplying it to first responders. We gave away a lot of product, and but we're also a business and we have overhead, so we did charge for what we make, enough to cover our costs. We had about roughly 2 to 3 months of just I mean, I would have 50 at least calls a day. We had to organize it in such a way that we made appointments. And this is a good problem to have if you're a small business person. And I know others of you here are looking at, well, how could I manage to generate that kind of an interest? Well, a pandemic and being one of the only people to produce hand sanitizer is a good way to start. So without adding too much levity into the situation, because it is serious. And it's also put us in a very precarious situation because we need to meet people to make these transactions. So we've done that. And in the last month, we've really come to a point where we need to get transitioned back as the economy begins to recover and as the pandemic begins to lessen. We need to transition back to what we do, which is make spirits. And we started that, but we found, like the supply chain, it's also been severely affected. As you know, half the restaurants are closed. Half of the, or all of the bars basically are closed. So there really is no place for us to look for sales through our distributors because they're having difficulty doing the same thing. One of the things that's helped us a lot, we were and still are carried by ABC. We started out in 9 locations. Now we're in 14 different locations across Central Florida. We're, pretty widely distributed through their stores. And if you go on ABC's site and just put us in their search window, you'll see that we come up with our 3 rums. And we're available there. They've started to do shipping, which is very helpful. But in a nutshell, I feel like retail is struggling just like everyone else. And what makes it more challenging is our products are all what you consider higher end. So they aren't bottom shelf. They're more or less mid-range, but people are trying to economize. I'm sure everyone in this venue are looking at where they can save money, and it's important right now to be vigilant about it. But it's encouraging to know that we are making progress, and eventually this will all begin to open up again. And I hope it's sooner rather than later. We have had some situations in which things are backsliding a little bit. Doesn't help that Florida is one of ranks, I think, 3rd or 4th in this the pandemic counts. So we feel like we've done our part to change this. And one of the things that we found interesting is that the graph was at its lowest point when we were selling the most hand sanitizer and giving it away. Ryan, I see your finger in the air. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Paul, with that, we're at time. So we want to go ahead and open it up for questions.
Great.
If you're joining us